Perfect.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 33 of Hobby Hotline. Of course, the famous number of Patrick Waugh. So you know it's going to be a great episode. Sorry, I had to throw that in there if you're going to mock me about my abs all day, which I know you're about to because you got that star stuff up. So I see it. But welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. As always, this is Hobby Hotline, the hobby's only live call-in show. So be putting the link in the chat right now, actually, for you guys, if you'd like to call in, if you have any questions, anything that you'd like to talk about today. As always, just feel free, jump right in. But joining me today, we've actually got 4 of us jumping on today. First up, TX Card Dude. How's it going, man?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning to you. Good morning to you, Dr. Beckett, Mr. Ziggy.
Yes, and next up is Mr. Ziggy. No, what's up, Ziggy?
Good morning, guys. Thank you for having me. Just finished my retail checks for Walmart and Target. Nothing out there.
All right, in the wild.
Why am I shocked? Why am I shocked? And finally, one of our new guest hosts, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with him with his podcast that runs daily throughout the week. And happy birthday as well, but Dr. Jim Beckett.
Happy birthday. Happy 29.
Do I get to celebrate my birthday on a day that's not my birthday? Today's not my actual birthday, but it's every day is a day to be celebrated. I'm glad to be here with y'all.
Yes, absolutely. So, all right, y'all. Well, I guess it was a busy week in the hobby. There's a lot going on. I know people probably have a lot that they want to talk about. And like I said, guys, please just let us know anything that you would like to discuss. But one of the big things, guys, and I don't know the direct implications. Dr. Beckett, you may have a little bit more knowledge on this than I would, but in Cleveland, the IX Center closing. That's been, Cleveland has always kind of been, at least since I've gotten back in the hobby, known as like the hub of the national. Yes, they go other places, but it always seems to come back to Cleveland. Cleveland and Chicago are like the 2 places I see that it seems to just keep coming back to. And the IX Center was a big part of that. That was where I went to my first national, and it was an incredible place. But they announced they're closing down this week, and we were scheduled to go back to Cleveland, I believe next year. And so, kind of throwing everything up in the air a little bit. But I don't know. This shocked me when you guys heard this news. What went through your minds? Because the immediate thought to me was, where in Cleveland can they have the national now?
I thought they had a plan already. I thought they were rebuilding something in that area, but I guess I'm wrong. When I heard it, I just thought, I guess they'll be at a new venue. I didn't think there would be no venue now.
Well, I was kind of, I was a little bit selfish and said, oh, wow, they could have it at the K. Bailey Hutchinson Center downtown in downtown Dallas. So, but that's just me, I'm
Have they done a national in Dallas? Because it seems to me Dallas would be a great place to do one.
They did one, my very first one, and Dr. Beckett, my memory is not. I remember there was one in Arlington, Texas that I went to back into the 80s, and it was smaller then. It was no way what it is now. But man, all I remember is I had a whole bunch of fun. Everybody stood in line for Tops, Panini, I guess it was just back then, Tops, Donruss, and there was huge lines, and that's where they gave away the sheets of uncut cards, and there was a lot of Nolan Ryan, and there was a lot of Looney Tunes around. Wild Card was actually there and gave away a bunch of wild card stuff. So it was it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Yeah, I understand, Brian, but there's also, there's Plano, there's Richardson, there's Arlington, there's a lot of stuff. There's not enough downtown to support it, but with the infrastructure and whatnot, we've pulled off a couple of larger events before. So, or even go into Arlington if you wanted to do that. So, or Anaheim. Anaheim's a good idea.
Yeah. So, Dr. B, have you heard anything? Talked to anybody like from the National since all this? What do you think? Is this something where you think they're going to start looking at different locations besides Cleveland? What do you think is going to happen with this?
To me, the chance is not zero that it won't be in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
And the chance is not even zero that it won't be at the IX Center. And basically, when cities look at things, I don't know if the IX Center is owned by the city or owned privately, but the city may resurrect it. Say this is an important thing for our city, for our area, to have these conventions coming in. There's nothing to do. It's the opposite of Las Vegas, where you're there and there's so many distractions there, almost no distractions within 5 or 10 miles of the IX Center. So you're a captive audience, you're close to the airport. And my sense is there's a possibility that the city of Cleveland or that area, the Chamber of Commerce, whatever it is, steps in and says, let's subsidize this in some way, because I think it's an important part of their city's, the way that the city presents itself. And it's a tip of the cap to the East Coasters, because Cleveland is it's not East Coast, but it's closer.
Yeah. Yep, and I saw in the comments here people mentioning Anaheim, SCA Sports Cards saying bring it back to Anaheim, and Rich Klein even mentioning Anaheim. It seems that at least the committee, whatever it may be, that's doing everything is dead set on keeping it in the Mid-East or whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to call Ohio, and then moving it farther east. Do you guys see it moving west? Is that something that's possible, or is this going to be an East Coast thing?
That's big in the IT industry. Is they had one great big huge show, NAIB, and what I found interesting is they came up with an NAIB West and an NAIB East, where you always have one in either Vegas or Los Angeles or Anaheim, and it bounces around in that area. And then on the West Coast, it's either in Philly or New York or something. I'm surprised that we haven't had I don't know, if a split or something in both areas of the country to be able to hold that. I know that was listening to a podcast to be able to have a second. There's been a little talk out there to have a second show or a mini show or a mini national. I've always found it interesting that the national or in our industry, everything's more geared to the East Coast. That's a long trip when you're going from California or from Las Vegas all the way over to the East Coast, and then to go back, and the other way to go from New York to Las Vegas or to California. It's not a fun flight. So I can understand the dichotomy. I'm not 100% sure why we haven't done something like that, or why something like that hasn't been done. Maybe it's been support, or maybe it's been everybody's liked just the national or anything like that. I'm not 100% sure, but can we support two? Can we, or do we just need to say, okay, we have, in Dallas here, we have Kyle shows, which is very, very, it's got a great following. You've got these mini super shows in each different regions where they grow. And then with what we've seen online with the online conventions or whatever, you know, the individual companies start putting on their own online shows. I'm not sure. It's very, very interesting to see how we're evolving, and yet, yes, the pandemic's a little bit of it, but things are starting to loosen up, and we're still seeing, you know, some of the effects. Does it break everything up? Go ahead.
I would say so I'm out of the DC area, and I follow, I think it's Tidewater Collectibles. They do a bunch of regional shows from North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, West Virginia. They still actually are doing shows every now and then. I think there was one a few weeks ago. I really think that once, you know, normal hits, whatever that might be, when people feel comfortable, go back out, I think you'll see a ton of shows regionalized because there's definitely the demand. So I'll just take somebody who gets it, who organizes it to make it happen. So my thoughts are, let's say April next year, I think you'll see lots of regional shows. To me, the number one reason I go to the national is for the networking of the people.
Yes.
Right. And I do agree, we've learned in COVID that you can do a lot of networking with people virtually. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited for national next year, but I'm also excited to go to local shows. I think local shows will start coming back in 2021, and we'll see more of those. And if you're out there listening, and if you're an organizer, I don't know why you wouldn't organize one, right? I mean, because the people are definitely going to want one as soon as we can get out there. People are going to want them.
Guys, if there was ever a time to have more than one national, it's perhaps this coming year, 2021, as Ziggy was saying, the pent-up demand for getting together, not just shows, but getting together is there. And so the problem is, and you know, I know, and I'm retired now, but when I wasn't retired, I was the boss. You know, the buck stopped there, at least for my little sphere of influence. But the National Sports Collectors Convention is more of a committee structure. It's not as easy to just say, hey, here's what we're going to do, because the dealers get a vote, and there's a committee, and then there's the kind of the managing partners. So it's trying to please all the people. There are some people that really want it on the West Coast, but some people say, don't you dare. And there's no one person that says, okay, sorry, I listen to everybody, but here's what we're going to do. But if there was ever a time to expand the concept and think that we've got the energy and the enthusiasm for two nationals, East and West, or Midwest, even three, this next year is the time to boldly jump out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I think this is absolutely the time. And like Brian says in the comments right there, that would be a good time if you were going to regionalize things like that and add in more shows to kind of try and hammer down a specific venue in a specific place, you know, so it doesn't really rotate all the time. I don't know if that's what the committee would want to do. I don't know if they like moving it around different parts of the country and stuff like that. But if we're having regionalized shows, then that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, but Drew, this is a highly unregulated industry. Right. And so there's lots of people that think entrepreneurially.
Yes.
Can have a, like Ziggy's saying, next year's shows, when you're the first show after a year of sitting around, and you're in the on the East Coast, West Coast, Northwest, even Dallas, the Kyle shows are doing better than expected. And there's no, you know, Kyle can call his show anything he wants to. The Chantilly show, Fort Washington, all these shows, the Greater Boston show, all those ought to take on greater importance. And there's, again, they shouldn't call it a national if it's not a national, but right. You know, Gloria Rothstein called hers the East Coast National. The Toronto Expo is kind of a Canadian national. So I just think all shows in 2021, to Ziggy's point, could be set records.
Oh, absolutely. We've had shows here in North Carolina for a while now. They've pretty much ramped up a steady schedule in North and South Carolina, and the shows have been packed. They've been incredible. They've been great, and people have been very, they followed the guidelines that people have out really well. There's never been like really any issues at any of them that I've seen or been to, and they've really ramped it up full steam here. I'm hoping that they get that going in other places of the country, but they've started doing it out in Texas now, haven't they? Have they?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
You know, I'm curious. I know the manufacturers like Topps, Panini, Upper Deck do big events at the national. Do they do any events at any of the regional stuff that would attract people? Like I don't know if they show up at Chantilly. I know like distributors do, but I don't think the manufacturers do. Because I think if we get the manufacturers going, that would also bring a lot of attendance.
Any show that would have all the manufacturers present would be a de facto national. There'd be freebies. There'd be lots of publicity, but there's a chicken and egg problem. You can't just build it and they'll come. You've got to demonstrate you're going to have 10 or 20 or 30,000 people coming. And
that makes me think, somebody brought up the other day, do you think that Panini and these companies will do away with like their rookie signing days and these events they did in the past, their VIP parties, or do you think there'll be more of those in the future? Because they do spend a lot of money at these events, whether it's a NBA signing, a draft day, or at a football draft day. They also do VIP events. But this year, everything's kind of been locked down, right? Like, for example, in football, you're already seeing there's not as many football rookie autographs out there. And you can assume because they weren't able to collect as many with these events.
One of the problems with culture right now is the COVID situation. They can't really do clinical trials. If they have something, they can't say, hey, you're going to get the good medicine and you're going to get the sugar pill. Okay. So, you're going to die because you're not going to get treatment. So clinical trials where you have matched pairs is not usually something that can be done. However, in the hobby this year, we have an experiment where in this year, some of those events, Ziggy, you're talking about are not going to take place. And then Panini and others will say, how did that affect our bottom line? What's the cost benefit? And they may say, in 2020, we did this, but we didn't do this, and it didn't seem to matter.
Yeah. So as an example, I was listening to Mojo Breaks, and they talked about the rookie signing day and how Panini did not do that this year. And the question is, will they do it next year? Because reality is, for business, they're still going to sell a ton of football this year. In fact, they'll probably sell more football than they've ever had, even though the product will have less autographs, because we have to assume they're going to be able to get less product. They're going to be less game-worn jerseys. So I think that's actually kind of sad because the manufacturers are going to be rewarded with a great year in sales, and they're going to be putting out inferior products. And we really don't have a choice.
So what you're saying is it's kind of a false experiment because there's some other confounding factors. But again, I just can't emphasize enough: the card companies are capitalists. There's some really good people there, but their goal is to make money and to have an enduring company that lasts a long time. So they're going to do what they think is best, and I think those kinds of events bring attention, positive attention to our industry, and like you say, bring product and
Has anybody heard about the Transcendent parties? Like, I know they just released another Transcendent product this week, the Captain's product, I think it was. And there's a party in every Transcendent. I'm just wondering, are those happening or are those being rain checked?
I'm sure they'll postpone them and, have a time that they do decide to do them. I'm assuming if they're going to put that stuff in there that eventually they'll do it. But I mean, I guess it would kind of depend on where it's located and what those guidelines are at the time, that it's at, and if they can get the athletes and the people that they've asked to come to actually show up. That's the other part of it is if they actually want to do it.
Yeah, well, the tickets are selling on eBay for big money. So, and I've never been to one. I've always wanted to go to a Transcendent party because again, you get a lot of cool stuff. You get to meet the athlete. I've heard some great stuff. The Panini parties are awesome. To me, those are the things that really drive, a lot of those events.
No, yeah, absolutely they do. TX, you're quiet up there, man. What's up?
Okay, so I'll admit something.
What's that?
Dr. Beckett being on is making me really nervous.
Gotcha. Well, so, you just woke up and you were jumping on, so you don't have to stay. You don't.
No.
You were just jumping on.
It's an honor and a privilege, and this is probably the first time that I've really had any interaction with him. So I'm sitting here sweating bullets and fanboying out because back when I was in the hobby, everybody Beckett magazine. This is the first time I've really had interaction with him. So I'm sitting here like, Oh,
I blocked his screen so I don't see him. So I don't remember that he's here. But I won't lie, sir. It was an honor when I heard you're gonna be on the show notes. I'm like, man, I get the guest host and Dr. Beckett's on it. Let me just say smart things, Ziggy. Say smart things.
I'm not going anywhere. Just watch this.
oh, there you go.
Wow.
that might actually help me talk, because if you can see how red I'm getting, I mean, it's
not
and I apologize. I really do. I'm usually a lot more talkative, but this is probably my fanboy moment, and then probably like another minute, I'll wake up and go, okay, just shut up and start talking.
I have another topic to bring up.
Bring it, brother.
I don't know if anybody. I did not get the Ben Baller Chrome boxes that Tops did, but I want to cheer Tops for that and doing that. And what I mean by that, some people have brought this up, but I've seen people complaining because I guess some of the Ben Baller boxes are out there. Other people haven't gotten it, and they're complaining. And all I have to say is, look, if you've got one, be thankful. Yeah. And I hope if you're collecting, I hope more people spend money on Tops than Panini, because I am disgusted with Panini and the Dutch auctions, where they are. I mean, look at Mosaic Football at $650 direct. Do you know what Prism Football is going to cost this year?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be $1,000. Okay, and it's not worth that.
No, and I agree. And kind of speaking on that a little bit, I do love the Ben Baller boxes. I think they look better than the actual design. I think it's awesome. I think he did a wonderful design. I think it's a great crossover that I think we're going to continue to see with these influencers, whether it be from fashion, art, or whatever it may be. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. But there was an interview that Go GTS did last week with DJ from Panini. If you guys don't know, he's the brand manager and does about 25,000 other jobs over there. DJ helps run most of that ship. And he was on there talking, and they were talking about, how they balance that value, and how they keep the value in the box, how they balance demand. But he was also talking about new retail's been a big issue, retail hoarding or whatever you want to call it. And they touched on that a whole lot. And he mentioned that they're starting to develop a program at Panini, which I hope Topps does the same thing, and I hope they can do this, where they start to get some type of program through hobby shops where they distribute retail that is limited, and it's able to be distributed so people can actually be able to go get boxes if they want to again. It's a very interesting interview, but what do you guys think about that? Because there's a lot of talk right now. You see people all the time talking about, well, my Walmart's doing this, my Target's doing that. They're not doing anything. I've talked to corporate. They're not doing anything about it. Except for maybe firing a couple reps, which I did find interesting, that Panini's reporting reps that they see on Facebook and getting them fired. But what do you guys think about that? Distributing some retail through hobby shops and limiting it so people can actually start to get some retail again.
So I had a pretty interesting. I actually took the daughter into the wild yesterday. Yeah, and you just daddy-daughter time, going bouncing around. We went to a couple of local Walmarts here, and I was telling her about, how people are buying up and hoarding and reselling, and the first words out of her mouth was, "That was stupid. What a waste of time." And as a 16-year-old girl would say, and you know what? It really struck an chord where I was thinking, golly, our hobby has changed so much in the past year. I could see where there is going to be a smaller set for a smaller type box design, not just for retail, but what if they start putting together a smaller set for online? What if they start putting a different type of same product, same chance, same everything, but a smaller type set for specifically retail with a retail exclusive insert, and then a smaller type of online strictly for online sales, and then you've got the strictly for hobby resale where they sectionalize it more, and the streams never cross. And I was thinking about that, and I'm going, okay, well then you still got your hoarding, How are you going to do that? And the nearest thing that I could come up with would be price leveling. Okay, well, you can't do that because of the government regulations. So the next thing that popped into my head, and it wasn't the best idea that I could think of, would be just go everything online and through distributors. Well, that's not the greatest solution. So I haven't been able to come up with a great solution, but there's a couple of ideas that I thought of to kind of make the playing field even, so to speak, because I've heard nightmare story after nightmare story after nightmare story, and when I go into the wild, if I don't see anything, then okay, great. If I go into the wild and I find something and I like it, I'll pick it up because I found some Donruss 2020 racing, 2019 racing. I left it just because I'm not a huge racing fan anymore, and I don't know. I just left it, and I couldn't come up with a better way to even the playing field without breaking federal law, for lack of a better phrase.
So I will say, I've been collecting again for about 5 years with my sons, and retail is what got my sons and I into the hobby, and we loved it. But I'll be honest, today, 2020, as a collector, I hope they get rid of retail, because to me, it's one thing it's doing is it's watering down the product line. It's making the print runs way too much, because what retail is it's a cheap product where the manufacturers don't have to put in any autographs. They don't have to put in any material. They can just print as much as they want. So I hope that Target and Walmart stop carrying it. And if it goes to the hobby shops, like you said, and maybe it's like mega box or something, I think that's fine. I just think, and maybe that sounds crazy, but I'd rather there be no retail and we sustain the value of the hobby than just find more ways to provide retail and cheapen the product, which is what they've been doing, in my opinion.
So you would think, and I like this train of thought, so let's explore it for a second. So if you take retail, put retail into the hobby, and then take the hobby portion or the hobby boxes and put those into online, so then you've got what would normally be retail would go to retail or hobby. You give them the ability to sell retail and hobby, because that would strengthen the hobby the hobby product line, and it would strengthen the retail product line, and then drop the majority of it back onto online so that it helps boost their profitability.
Well, not even that. I just put it this way: if you just got rid of retail, think about how much less Prism would be out there, and how much you'd hold the value of hobby. Like 5 years ago, when I came into the hobby, right? Everybody would tell you don't buy retail; it's a waste of money. There's nothing good in retail. No one did. You buy hobby boxes because it had guaranteed hits, guaranteed autos, guaranteed relics, and that is where the value is.
Right. I understand that, but the big thing is that retail is used in the hobby as that's really where they focus to get people that aren't interested into the hobby. Like putting it in those stores is where, I mean, now granted, now where it's at now, where there's nothing on the shelves, obviously you're not going to get people in, but the original idea of putting it in retail is to put it in those stores to get, the kids, the next generation, people that aren't into the hobby, maybe they're standing in line and check it out and want to get it. That's where those two, and honestly, for someone like me, the people that would have to drive an hour and a half to get to a hobby shop, that's where they put that in. But I do agree with you that, the amount of retail that's being put out is being watered down. But Dr. Beckett, what do you think about, the retail aspect right now and everything?
Well, again, these card companies, they're out to make money, and they're not doing. But one thing I like, and I like the way the conversation is going, is that the card companies are into experimentation. They're trying some things. The problem is sometimes the things they're trying actually do work, and then sometimes they'll beat that to death.
Yes.
And overproduce it. Well, then a year or two later, then that quit working. They'll do something else. So I'm very much in favor of the experimentation. It makes for a dynamic hobby industry. And then also you've got the situation of it gets more complicated. You've got all these different SKUs and things like that, and complications up to a point are really interesting for our industry. Mm-hmm. But you can't tell people not to buy stuff that they think they can make money on And the tipping point is when base cards can be graded and sold for big bucks. Then you don't care where you got the base card.
Yeah.
You can get them graded if you want to wait a long time. But if you get good grades, you made your money back and then some. And had a great experience.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, exploring this a little bit further as we were talking. I heard, and I can't remember where I heard this on somebody's podcast this week, where you take product lines, and in order to keep retail at retail and keep the entry level product, you keep Big League at Walmart and into the retail. So then you keep the more lower end into retail, and then you keep the higher ends and then you go Amazon fulfillment and say, okay, well, we're going to put everything on Amazon and fulfill it that way. We as a card company, or as Topps Panini, we aren't experts in the fulfillment aspect of it. Let's take Topps 2020 as a severe example. Why are Topps and everybody having a hard time with their distribution when Amazon's sitting right there and it's got the thing figured out and got the distribution and the ability to do it? Does that take out the distributor relationship then? And how does that affect the distributors? It's a great thought, and I cannot remember where I heard that podcast, but it stirred a whole bunch of thought into my brain of how do we and you're never going to fix it, because we are free market capitalists, and if you change, being a sales rep, if you change the rules, I'm going to figure out a way to do it. You see, you're shaking your head. Go ahead.
The last time this was fixed was in the junk wax era, when cards were omnipresent. When we're talking about distribution anomalies, the companies are, I won't say laughing all the way to the bank, but that's very healthy, that people can't find what they want immediately. That it's a deferred gratification. You got to work it. You got to drive around. You got to be smart. So that's in the business plan of these card companies. Right? And so you're throwing out all these ideas, but it's going to backfire, because they can say, I was listening to Hobby Hotline. They threw out a bunch of ideas. We're going to try those too. So they don't look at it.
Okay, I'll shut up.
There's a dichotomy that we're going to do all in this channel. There's a fluidity in our industry that is a positive aspect.
That's fair. That's fair, and that's actually something I didn't think about. Just trying to you hear the other side, and I do a lot of listening. I do a lot of listening now to what's going on in the industry. Number one, trying to catch back up. Number two, just trying to help bring more, I don't know if it's content or whatever you want to call it, a little bit more knowledge base to the tribe. But hearing different thoughts and different ideas and steering, you make a great point, Dr. Beckett, to shut up and kind of don't rock the boat.
Well, I mean, it's like the experimentation and stuff, like you said, it being fluid and everything. On that same interview that DJ was talking about, I mean, that's where mega boxes came from. Everything was moving from the shelves. Instead of jacking up the prices of blaster boxes and hanger boxes, which they've upped the price of some products. I have a feeling Prism blasters might be a couple more bucks than 22, but they're not going to double the price of the blasters. They're going to create other configurations, and that's where you're getting these, the trial that they're doing and everything. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do next. But what's up?
You made me think of a quick question. What, with all these different variations, can you explain to me what is Tmall?
The Tmall is the Chinese. It's actually, Tmall is what China calls their direct-to-consumer stuff. That's their abbreviation for. That's how they call direct-to-consumer. So those are all overseas-based releases.
Is Choice and Tmall the same thing? Like, I know there's Tmall Select and there's Choice.
No, they are different. They all have different things in them and everything. But this is that, like, the China will always have some type of China red parallel for the new year and stuff like that. But Tmall is China's version of direct to consumer. So that's
I was told they were also created with less base cards, so it saved the manufacturer for shipping, so they could ship over selected products to Asia. I mentioned that because I in one of my blogs this week, I saw that there are Tmall gold refractors being sold on eBay, but they're not numbered to 10. They're just considered short print. And I saw a lot of eBay listings where they're saying 10 or less on these gold waves, which are not short printed at all.
Right. No, that's the Tmall, and that's the confusion, and that's people listing eBay, with odd listings. We actually have a caller we're going to bring in on the line now. Welcome, Kevin Jones. What's up, man? Thanks for calling in.
Good morning, everybody. How you doing?
Doing good.
Hey, I wanted to throw something out there, an idea that I've been thinking about, and I actually saw it on social media, and I'm wondering kind of what everybody thinks, or maybe I'm totally off my rocker, but I think, what drives a lot of this retail pricing and retail hoarding that we see, and just everything right now, is third-party grading. And everybody wants PSA 10s. The market moves so quickly, though. I mean, I'm getting ready to send an order out this morning, but I wonder if we will ever enter what I saw referred to as a junk gem era, where we have a glut of thousands and thousands of these PSA 10s of players that don't ultimately pan out. And I mean, I think about, there's probably people who still have Vladdy and Pete Alonso cards sitting at PSA, Beckett, SGC, waiting to be graded. Nobody's really collecting them anymore, I don't think. Everybody's moved on to something else. And next year it'll be a new crop, and the guys this year will kind of fall by the wayside. Kyle Lewis, and who knows with Robert if he's going to pan out, Wander Franco, who knows. So I just wonder if we're ever going to hit a tipping point where there is such an oversupply of PSA 10s, even PSA 9s of these modern cards, that it kind of is a tipping point where it goes back to some sense of normalcy, because there's just so many people are sitting on stacks of dozens, hundreds of these. They can't move them. I just kind of wondered what everybody thinks about that.
Well, I want to get Dr. Beckett's opinion on this after I just throw my 2 cents in real quick. But I do think it has. We're obviously going to have. There's going to be players that don't pan out, and a lot of people are going to have slabs. There's going to be a ton of slabs that aren't worth much. But that to me is no different than if they weren't slab. Big deal. I mean, it's the same thing if you look at it that way. But I think the only way that would happen would be if people left the hobby. I mean, right now the hobby's growing, and it seems to continue to be growing, but it's going to have its ups and downs. But I don't know if we necessarily get into a junk slab era. I do think people are going a little overboard with some of the things they are grading. I would like to see some, people fall back on some of the 7th year, whoever, Rafael Devers when he's 7 years in, 7-year base cards. But, beyond that, I don't really see it happening unless, a lot of this new money or whatever you want to call it decides to leave the hobby. But Dr. Beckett, you've seen, a lot of the ups and downs and through the junk era, the overproduced era and everything. What do you think about Kevin's question? Because it's a great question. Thanks for calling in, man.
Kevin, good point. I mean, basically, again, there's so many alternatives in the industry. You'd think that a PSA 10 or a BGS 9.5 or even a 10 or even a black label, if it's a player that's not widely collected, then you've got a nice case. But if demand is not there, what I think is going to happen, though, Kevin, because I do think you put your finger on something. It's going to change the strategies that the savvy collectors employ with respect to their grading submissions.
Yeah.
Even now, and even in the last few months, you've seen a migration toward more sure things. If you're going to submit a player that hasn't done anything in a speculative grading submission, if it would come back in a week, you could sell it in a week. But if it comes back in 6 months, you're kind of rolling the dice. number one, that you're going to get a good grade, that you're going to get the grade you want, and number two, that the player's still going to be hot. And so I think there's been a movement in the last few months toward selling and grading these more sure thing veteran players in basketball. I mean, it's always going to be the super hot rookies, but that next tier of speculative rookies, you've brought in a dynamic that says, that getting it graded, it may not be something you want to grade in 6 months.
No, as someone that runs, that does this as a business, that's something, Dr. Beckett, exactly. I have completely changed my thought process and what I'm looking at when I'm submitting because of the delay and because of what you just said. I've had to change it completely.
Yeah, I probably will not do any grading for a while. I mean, I love grading. I'm in John's train of thought as far as grading goes. But the problem is that if I submit a card now, even if I drive a card to down the street to work or from work, it's still, I'm on month 7 of that card still being in process. I can't even see it to see what the process is right now. It just got accepted last month. So okay, special indicate whatever. But you're still talking about 7 months, and the only reason why I'm even optimistic to that is because of who it is. It's Kobe. So I mean, if I were to take a Robert, why would you even think about putting a Robert out when what's going to happen in the off season when the off season's almost there? It just, from a business standpoint, the ROI is not there yet. And if we get shorter times, sure. But if we don't, now as on the collecting side, sure. I've got 2 PSA Pete Alonsos over here. I got a PSA 9 Troy Aikman. I'm out hunting for a couple of other PSA 9 and 10s because I still have that allure from 1988, 89, 90 of the perfect card. And I know they're not perfect now because of all the scandals going on, but I still have that childhood allure of the perfect card. This is a perfect whatever. And yes, I know it's false, and yes, I know it's not, but still it's that boyhood experience of having the perfect. And maybe that's the reason why is coming back to that 1980 and 1990s, 1989, whatever feel of having, oh, I got a PSA 10, woo! And now you're sitting here and you've got one PSA 10, but there's 50,000 of them. So I don't know, but from a business standpoint, I'm probably not going to do it for a while.
So Kevin,
I got just like a parting thought on, and I think
Sure.
Texas Card Dude kind of hit on what I was kind of referring to, is that it can ultimately lose its uniqueness. What I'd always thought when I saw the grading kind of really taking over about 15 years ago, I always thought it was for high-end vintage is what I always thought grading was for. And so I always, would think, the 50s and 60s primarily high-end vintage cards. And I would look at my old vintage cards and be like, wow, mine are, pretty shabby, compared to what I'm seeing graded here. And that's what I always thought grading was for high-end vintage. But now, I mean, everybody's sending everything in, and I feel like it can lose its luster, particularly what I'm thinking is on ultra modern stuff. I believe everything going back 20 years and further, and eventually these will be old too, but there's just so much of it coming out that it's just not unique is what I feel like. And again, the players are so fly by night right now with the prospecting that it's just, I feel like there's going to be people with stacks of stuff that they just can't ultimately move. I think of like a Pete Alonso, or somebody like that. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out. I appreciate everybody kind of jumping in and the feedback on that.
So
absolutely, that's what the show's for.
Kevin, I was just going to add one story. I warned people with football this year.
Yes.
Be careful with football because you're not going to get a football card back graded unless you're paying extra for that. as a lesson. In 2017, when my sons and I were collecting, we were chasing Kareem Hunt, right, running back. We got a bunch of his cards. We sent them up for grading. They came back 9 months later. In that time, he was kicked off the team, had his issues. Those cards were worthless. Now, he had a good night the other night on the game, so I'll be listing those cards this week to hopefully get back the price of the grading. But I just warn people on football, because football, you're going to wait a long time. You're risking on a rookie, right? If you grade a Burrow, what if he's not playing next year? Now, I know he looked good, but that's the real risk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
By the time you get the cards back, the season will be over.
Show, bud. Thanks
Hey, no problem, guys. Later.
Have a good day. Yeah, and speaking on that for just a moment, it goes in well beyond just football. I do caution people heavily on people like Edwards-Helaire right now. He is through the roof. Now, maybe this is the year. I talked about it a little bit last week, and I talked about it on this week's episode of Let Me Get That Potograph that drops tomorrow. And maybe this is the year people other than quarterbacks start to get, some love past their rookie year, but normally not. But what you're seeing with, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and even in basketball, switch over to basketball where my Heat are dominating. You look at Jamal Murray. His prisms have skyrocketed up to what I think $3-5 grand, something like that. I'm sorry, but he's in Denver. It's not a strong market. It doesn't matter. He would have to win Finals MVP, sign a supermax, and have another star come with him and Jokic, and have a chance to repeat and be the favorites for his cards to have a chance to stay where they are. They're going to plummet. So, even when you're sending cards out to grade to hopefully get a big return or buying those graded cards, this is such a day trading style market these days. You have to be very, very careful with when you're buying and selling and who that hot person is.
No, you're absolutely right on the rookies. There's so much risk there when people, they think their rookie is going to be the next Michael Jordan. Like you said, let's say Murray goes on, they upset the Lakers, they go ahead and win the championship this year. He gets one ring. That doesn't make him the next, Wilt Chamberlain or anything. It just makes him a one ring star. So you're right. He's not LeBron over that, but people are buying him as if he is the next LeBron or something. And the same thing in football.
Yep.
Football, I also caution too. We have to remember we're here in the United States. Football is really only appreciated in the United States. It's just not a global sport. So we fuel that, and running backs, I think, are picking up value this year. But my question is, will they have value 10 years from now?
Yeah.
A lot of other, it's just basketball, baseball to me, I think are better. Even soccer, I think, has some potential.
You had to go there. You had to bring in the soccer. I was waiting for it. You had to bring it in.
Well, I'll tell you, again, I'll go back to, I appreciate Topps. I've been spending a lot more money on Topps this year than I have been Panini. And someone commented on the hat, the Panini hat I wear all the time was actually a gift my son got me. So it's kind of a collecting thing. And I used to love Panini. I'm just a consumer.
Guys, on my podcast, every day I'm trying to crank out something, sports card insights, and I can be nonlinear. I can do whatever I want to do. So one of the ones I'm preparing for next week or the week after is going to be called Cold Cards and the investment fallacy of ignoring cold cards.
Yeah.
Because some cold cards are just not being hyped.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind.
All these attempts to figure out what's the hottest of what's selling and moving the fastest. That's the other investment strategy, is to buy something that appears to be stagnant.
Right. Like our last caller who had an excellent question. And guys, if you have any type of question, feel free to call in. But that's one of the things I was thinking when he mentioned Pete Alonso, Vlad, people like that. They're going to have – there's only so much money in this hobby to chase, the star rookie. You are going to have times where people are chasing other people, and they will have a down time. That is the time to buy if you believe in that person. It is not the time to give up on them or think that they're gone. Once they've proven that they're – granted, so you give them 5 years, they'll prove you right or wrong. But, absolutely, when you see someone that's cold, I keep a running list of a cold list, basically, of people that I'm chasing because I believe that eventually they'll get paid more attention to. Like minor leagues this year, they didn't have a season. A lot of those guys plummeted. They didn't change. They're still training. They still have the same potential. They still have the same skill set. So things are going to go back.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Brody just mentioned that, let's take a great example of Vlad Guerrero, who at the beginning of the season was very, very hot still off of his season last year. Now he's, he's almost ice. But has the player lost his ability? No, he hasn't lost his ability. What happened was he got into a small little baseball slump, and because baseball's compacted this year, it kind of put a little bit more eyeball into him, and then turn around and look. You can't give away a Vlad Guerrero card right now. Well, okay, fine. Don't go buy Vladimir Guerrero cards. Go buy them cheap, and then turn around and all of a sudden, when he goes through a full off season and the problems that he's having, and he does have done a little bit of research. He's got a couple of problems in his swing. He's going to figure it out. And once he figures it out, he's going to go smoking hot again. Look at Tatis. I mean, his stuff was shooting through the roof like a month ago. Yeah. Now it's dropped off. Why? Well, it makes no sense to me, because the Padres are going to end up going into the hunt for the into the playoffs, and could be a World Series team.
They'll be back up this year.
It makes no sense whatsoever to stop looking at, and everybody keeps bashing on Pete Alonso. Thanks, I appreciate that, because you know how much I love Pete Alonso. But I mean, even Polar Bear had, he had a lull, and then he turned around and he smacked a couple of home runs. Well, I'm still collecting Pete Alonso cards. I'm still buying Bowman first. I get as many as I can get my hands on. So, okay, there's my rant, Drew. Every once in a while I get on a rant, and there's my rant.
You guys are naturally gravitating, like most people do, and I'm going to go a little bit deeper than this. You're finding cold cards to be cards that were formerly hot, and I'm saying there's some undiscovered cards that are just maybe they're more lukewarm, but something that has been hot where the guy has a slump, then the price drops, and you're thinking he's going to go back up. There's a bunch of those, and I encourage that. I mean, you believe in your player, go for it. But then there's some others that are just they're not making any of the lists of the fast movers.
Right.
But if they get a chance, it's more akin to what Drew is saying about the minor leaguers who don't have the visibility.
Yeah.
One of the visibility. So in this hobby, visibility is a big deal. What are people talking about? And that gets hyped up, and it inflates the price, and it gets up too high, and then people move on to something else.
Absolutely.
Inserts are starting to take off now. There's some insert sets and some of the older products that I think are getting some attention as well.
Yeah.
Because if you look at some inserts, their pops are going to be a lot lower than the other cards. And you're right. People aren't aware of them. And I don't want to give any away, but also some Hall of Fame players with some inserts, right? Like, let's put it this way. Dwayne Wade. If you look at Dwayne Wade, he has some really sexy inserts, similar to what LeBron had and Michael had. So I agree with you. There's some really cool stuff out there, low population, really good-looking cards. And if you look older, you also get more opportunity. You get tops, not just all Panini products, right? You can find tops, Bowman, other things.
Yeah, I've actually got one posted on a lot of socials that I need a lot of help with if someone's really good at, if anyone watching is an expert on Skybox EX 2000 cards, really need some help figuring out a value on one. But yeah,
Pete Alonso's awful. He's horrible. Pete Alonso is awful. He's like the worst player ever.
Right. But no, I agree, Dr. B. There are a ton of cards that they haven't got that attention yet, and it really is, out of sight, out of mind. Things drop, and maybe things drop even lower that never even had the hype before, and that there's a massive long list of those as well. And I think that, like I had mentioned earlier, someone that is doing this for a living now, that, I have had to adjust and, take a look at what I'm going after. And a lot of that has had to do with the shortened seasons, the gradings, but especially now when we're talking about cards moving up and down, all these seasons besides football. All these seasons that are condensed, it's going to be magnified 1,000%.
My point is this: there aren't cards moving down, other than moving down from
Right,
where.
yeah.
If we look at 1 year ago, and all the there's some excellent podcasts out there and platforms that can tell you what's gone up the most.
Right.
The last year and look at what's gone up the most, it's outrageous, some of the percentage increases, and they're touting that. What I'm saying is, show me some cards that have not moved a muscle.
Right.
Not moved at all in the last year when everything else is moving up, and there's a reason, and usually it's the visibility.
Yep.
So I'm challenging the tribe. Go find you one. I'll challenge the tribe right now. Go find one. Go find an insert. Go find a player. Go find one, and the next week come back and let us know. That's a great challenge. I challenge the tribe right now. Go find one and come back.
That's a good idea. I like that. There you go. Let's see. Card hobbyist says Judge to Soto to Acuna to Vladdy to Wander to Dominguez. There's a new hype every year. It keeps rolling. Absolutely. I think that's what the hobby's built on. It's about hyping up the new generation's always going to be about what people want to go after, especially once the rookie card logo was established as the thing. But I think that's just the hobby. My biggest thing is I think now it's just magnified so much with social media. For instance, we're streaming to multiple channels. You can go everywhere and see everything. So the visibility factor of the hobby is unlike it's ever been. So, and you can interact with people that before all of this, you could never interact with. And so I think that has a lot to do, that forms perception in a lot of people's minds on maybe some of the negativity on that aspect. But, the hobby needs the hype. The hobby needs these rookies, and we're lucky. I do think we may have a couple down years coming up. I hope not. Maybe that's just how the world's going to work from now on. But we've gotten very lucky, and had kind of all the sports at the same time almost have a changing of the guard, if you will. Really good rookie classes of vets moving out, which has helped with this boom.
Now, I'll throw this out there, and I remember this specifically from one of John Newman's podcasts, where, in this particular conversation, he was talking about specifically like players that were ultra hot. I'm going to throw Jason Dominguez out there because we all know that that's an overinflated card, no matter what. And then you take like the 52 Mantle. The 52 Mantle. There's nothing Mickey can do to increase his value. There's just not. But the 52 Mantle in Jason, that price discrepancy. Okay, well, why? Why is there that price discrepancy? What has done that particular? What is driving that? Well, there's your discrepancy right there in the hype and the popularity and again going back to challenge. Take a look at some of the lesser known players, or lesser known, even the more popular. Let's take Mailman. Let's take Mailman, for example, in basketball. Let's take my favorite, Charles Barkley. Good grief, Charles Barkley back in the day was a grandmama. Who cannot remember grandmama in a rocking chair, knitting, doing a chicken commercial? I don't remember if it was Popeyes or KFC, but he was doing a chicken commercial. Nobody was doing that kind of stuff. Nobody. And remember Deion Sanders doing prime time and doing his burger commercials, and then doing multiple personalities. Those players we don't have that kind of stuff in the hobby now. So why aren't people going back and going, oh man, remember the rivalry between Barkley and Jordan? Remember the just the absolute fights that Dennis Rodman used to cause on the actual courts. People wanted to punch Rodman on court, and he'd be like, "Yeah, I got into your head," and it was, prime time fun, just aggravating the crap out of it. You've got these players going back that were terrific, great personalities. Where's their hype? Where's their popularity? Where are they? Are we so are we so focused on what's coming that we'll go back. Why aren't we going back and looking at the history of the hobby and saying, come on, I mean, these great Keyshawn Johnson, probably not one of the greatest wide receivers of all time, but man, he had a fantastic personality with his playing, and is a great personality on ESPN now. I could go. There's another one of my rants. I'm going to shut up.
No, you're all.
Well, I think you also point out that there's a lot of players like that who just didn't get hobby love. Like, I keep warning people that Giannis, everybody wants to spend money on Giannis. Giannis could be the next Karl Malone. Okay, great player, Hall of Famer, wonderful human being, but never gets a ring.
Mm-hmm.
And people are betting on Giannis. They're spending money on his card like the guy has 5 rings, right? So, you know, I think what you're just bringing up again, what's going on in the hobby. That's the way the hobby is, you know?
Absolutely. Well, y'all, it is noon, so that we're going to wrap up today's episode. Once again, I'd like to thank all of my co-hosts, Texas Car Dude, Ziggy No, and Dr. Jim Beckett. Thanks so much for joining us. And thank you guys. Feel free always to call in. We've got an awesome show coming up next week. So we will see you guys then. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks,
See
guys.
ya.
Thanks, everybody.
Perfect.